Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Saiga. My name is Syed and I'm a .NET developer since 2008. I'm working in an e-commerce based organization for a long time. We have a desktop application that is purely written in .NET, where we use embedded browser control to authenticate our customers on different websites like Intuit, Shopify, eBay, BigCommerce, etc. We use .NET browser control because this is the easiest way to get the auth code and auth token in application itself by reading callback URLs. But there's a problem. The browser control which comes with .NET framework is pretty much old and it uses Internet Explorer's libraries. And recently Intuit announced that they're gonna stop supporting Internet Explorer 11 for QuickBooks authentication. And the same case with Shopify as well. They only support latest 3 versions of Microsoft Edge, Chrome and few other browsers. So we were stuck because our customer won't be able to authenticate themselves on these websites just because these websites or these applications are not going to be opened in embedded browser which we use anymore. I searched on internet and everyone was saying to host a web page that read callback URLs and store auth code in database. But we did not want to do that because it requires spawning in order to fetch the data, which I personally don't like because it is time consuming process and waste of resources as well. We wanted a fast and secure way to read these data in application itself on the go, and we wanted to implement this in a way that it should not depend on browser. This means if customer have any browser installed, it should work fluently or properly. I was struggling a lot to find out how to implement auth in desktop based application. I searched on internet a lot, went through so many different documents, talked to different people. They had the same answer. Either the answer was related to web application or it was totally different than my organization wants me to implement. Based on different research and combination of some technology, finally I got the solution that I want to implement. So today I'm going to share with you that how did I implement oAuth in my desktop application. Alright guys, so on this video I'm going to show you how to connect Shopify with Auth, and in the next video I'm going to show you how to use the Auth for Intuit. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I've created this sample project for you guys to show you how to connect Shopify using Auth. I'm having one form in it and this form contains 2 objects, a text box and a button. So in this text box we are putting the name of the shop of the Shopify, and when we click on this connect button, it will try to connect with Shopify using Auth. You can see I have created 2 variables over here. One is called browser process and another one is called Shopify HTTP listener. So browser process is basically a process type. So whenever we want to start any process, we have to create the variables of this process class, and we have to provide some we have to initialize some properties of it, and we can start the process. So it will start the process. Okay, in our case it will start the browser process. So whichever default browser you will have will pass a login URL and will start the process. So by starting this process, your default browser will start. We have a HTTP listener as well. So we'll start HTTP listener, and what HTTP listener will do is it will start a small server in your system and will listen to particular URL. So whenever someone hit that particular URL, it will the code will be activated, and you will be able to see which URL got hit, and whatever if there is something in query string, you will be able to get those variables in your code. So basically you can read the URL directly in your code. To start a server using HTTP listener, you need to provide a prefix. So prefix is generally a URL on which you want to listen to. Okay, so in our case I've created localhost as an URL, so http localhost, and you also need to provide a port. So what happens is, whenever this localhost and this port will get hit by any of the browser, you will be able to read, or you will be able to read whole URL in your code. Okay, so what will happen is, Shopify will gonna redirect all the auth code and other information on this particular URL, localhost URL. Okay, so why Shopify is gonna redirect all the auth code and other information on this particular URL? Because I whitelisted this localhost URL on Shopify app. Okay, with this localhost, you can use any of the free port. Don't use 80 or 443 or registered port. You can use other free port, like I have used 33337 or 12345. You can use any of them. Okay, any of them. Okay, then we will start the HTTP listener. So it will start and it will try to listen on this URL. Okay, our next step is to start the browser process. In the file name of browser process, I put my connection URL on which Shopify is gonna try to authenticate the user. So if you're not aware about the navigation URL, so I'm gonna show you what is in this particular Shopify connection URL. So this is the whole connection URL. You can see there are three placeholder in this connection URL. So the first one is the shop name, the client ID, the second one, and the most important one is redirect URL, in which we are going to pass the localhost URL. Okay, so the shop name will come from this particular text box, which I already shown you in the UI, and this is the Shopify API key, and this is the redirect URL, which is same as localhost. And using this command, I will start the browser. So whenever this command will get hit, a new instance of your default browser will open, and the Shopify connection URL will get hit. So it will open auth window for the customer. So customer have to put their user ID and password and try to log in. Once they are successfully logged in, this localhost URL, which is actually a redirect URL, will get hit by Shopify, and when we are listening on that particular URL using HTTP listener. So whatever the auth code Shopify will send, we will be able to read those auth code using our HTTP listener context. Okay, so after browser process start, it will wait on this line. Okay, so whenever the localhost and this port will get hit by Shopify, it will activate from here only. Okay, so using context .request.query string, we can read the whole URL, but we are actually going to read only two variables, two query string variables, code and shop. So in the code we will get the auth token or auth code, and in the shop we will get the shop name, which we already get from the customer in this particular text box. So after successful getting the code from the Shopify, I have created a HTML page in which I have written you are successfully connected. So this message will be shown to the customer by using this piece of code. Okay, so to get the permanent access token, I have created this function. This piece of code will use the code which we are getting from this method, and after getting the code, we will process that code in this function, which is called get permanent access token, and we will get the permanent access token. Okay, so let's get into the live code. So let me start the code here, and I will show you the whole process live. So this is the form which I already shown you in the start of the video, in which I'm going to type the shop name. So in our case, my shop name which I already created is called Split Villa. So I'll put a split villa and try to connect. So when I click on connect button, the whatever I shown you in the code, it will all execute and will stop on the listener side. Okay, so what it did is it hit that navigation URL. In that navigation URL we have already put our redirect URL as in localhost. Okay, so Shopify will redirect auth code on that particular localhost. Okay, now it will show you the login form of Shopify. So user will be able to put their credentials in this form, and when they log in successfully, Shopify will authenticate those users and will send the auth code. Okay, for example, I have already put my credentials, Shopify credentials, and try to log in. So as I click on login, Shopify will authenticate the user, and Shopify hit that localhost URL, and we are able to see the URL now. Here you can see I have already put a breakpoint. So you can see Shopify already hit that URL, and I can see there is a code. This is the shop, and so here you can see the local host and the port which we passed as an redirect URL in the navigation URL, and you can see the code and some other parameters in the URL. Now I'm getting the permanent access token using the code which we recently got, and this is the actual permanent auth code from Shopify. Okay, so I think that's it for today's session. So I'll see you in the next video with Intuit auth token. There's a slight difference between both of them, so I'll show you how to get auth token on the Intuit.